Hey guys, so today I wanted to share with you something very special. As some of you may know, I went off on my honeymoon actually last November now, November 2021. I can't believe I am talking about this in April 2022, but it's taken a while to get things together. But anyway, we went off for a lovely 3-week road trip around South Africa, which is where I live with my husband, and it was just such an amazing adventure, and we literally cannot wait to get back out on the road and explore more of South Africa soon. But today I thought I'd just share with you my sketchbook that I took. I actually took 2 sketchbooks, but I only really mainly used one of them. Here's the second one. And yeah, and I've got a few clips just from us messing around on the road, which I thought some of you may find interesting. So yeah, let's take a look. The main sketchbook I used for the trip is this Stillman and Byrne Beta sketchbook. It is the, I think it's 8 by 10 inches size, and it's the soft cover, the blue cover. And then the second book I took with me, which I thought would just be more for pencil, pen and ink, just dry media, is the Stillman and Byrne Epsilon sketchbook, which is the hardback version. And I think it is like maybe the 5 by 8 size. I was quite surprised by this book because actually it did handle watercolor just fine, especially sort of a lighter touch on more kind of illustrative things where I wasn't using heavy watercolor. This was actually totally fine, and it's actually fast becoming one of my favorite sketchbooks, and in the beginning I really didn't like it very much, so I find that always happens. This book I actually bought ages ago, back in 2019, Christmas 2019, when I was visiting Australia, and it was quite expensive, but I really wanted to try it because I'd tried a smaller Zeta sketchbook before that, which I had when I was traveling in Mexico, and I loved it so much. I wanted to try this version, and yeah, because it was so expensive, it took me a long time to use it. Well, actually I was away from it for a long time. It was in the UK whilst I was here in lockdown, but yeah, it's taken me a while to sort of get some courage up to use it. Anyway, so yeah, let's take a look. So I'd started this book. These are scenes from Australia when we were sort of on the Great Ocean Road. Just sort of wanted to get used to the paper. It does say it's a cold press paper, but it doesn't really have much texture at all. So which is great. That's fine by me. Because I'd done a few random sketches in this book, as I was traveling on my honeymoon, I went back and filled in some spaces. So this picture here is actually a piece of artwork I saw in a wine estate in a place called Hermanus, and I just loved the painting so much. So I was like, oh, I'll try and do like a little watercolor version of it. So this isn't to do with the road trip, this is just something else. So I think I was just practicing with the paper. I was quite happy with how this came out though. It's like super bright, and I just really love this mixture of this paper, this Stillman and Byrne paper, with the White Nights watercolor. It's just so vibrant, so bright. It's really nice. And then again, this was me just messing around. I think this is in one of my videos, 3 heritage sites in 3 different styles in 3 different sketchbooks. And this was also a YouTube video. This is in Cork in Ireland. I think I was trying to be loose and tight in the same sketch, see what I could do with that. Okay, so here is the start of the trip. So we came into a place called Svartberg, which is about 5 hours from Johannesburg, and to be honest with you, there's not too much there, but I did really like this this sign as you enter the town. I thought that was quite cool. And I think they had like some random steam train in the middle of the town, like on the, I want to call it Village Green, but that's just my Englishness coming out. I guess it was just the field in the middle of the town. So we only just drove past it quickly because we were on the way to see some of Duncan's clients, but that would have been cool to sketch, but I didn't really get a chance. So that was the only sketch I did in Freiburg. I do have an ebook out now with all of these sketches and a bit more of an explanation, because there were some really funny stories from the trip. So yeah, maybe get the book to to learn more about long arming and what happened with that. So, and then this second sketch here, I had some space. This is the thing, I'm not used to like this size of sketchbook. So I had some, I'm used to kind of half of this size. So I had some space here. So I decided to sketch the eye, the Kuruman eye. And yeah, it's the largest flowing water in the southern hemisphere. I've got it written in the book, something like that, but it's pretty cool. And I was really happy with how I got the water here. I thought that came out really nicely. I was quite happy with the sketch. I also like these rocks here as well. I was trying to do a bit of wet and wet with I think some Payne's grey and maybe some sort of, maybe the Indian gold. I can't remember now, but I really like that effect and how it came out. So this one wasn't to do with the trip. This, you might have seen it in a YouTube video. This is when I was doing a commission for someone who lives in Texas, and this is their house, which is brilliant. And I did it on quite a large piece of paper, but here I was just sort of messing around. And this one is from the trip. There was just this really cool donkey statue outside of this museum that happened to be closed, so we couldn't get inside. But the gardens were really beautiful, and this was, yeah, really cool little statue. So I thought I'd try and draw that. You know, when you just see something, you're like, oh, I know how this would look in a sketch. Yeah, that's what happened with this one. And this isn't to do with the trip, but I do have a YouTube video on that, sort of trying to create atmosphere with lots of wet and wet and stuff like that, with a sharp focal point. This was the first time... No, that's a lie. Okay, let's switch to this sketchbook quickly. The Epsilon. Where are we now? This was the first time I sketched in a moving vehicle, which is actually kind of weird. I don't know why that is, but yep, this was the first time I tried it. So we were on the road from Johannesburg to Freiburg, our first stop, and I decided I would draw the interior of the car. I've seen other sketchers do this kind of thing, and I'm like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go for it. So I think I just started, I don't know, I can't remember where I started now. Probably just in the middle here, I think, and then I just built outwards, and I was trying to get that sense of sweeping perspective, you know. So I'm not sure how successful that was. So I've got my sketchbook here, my knees, the iPhone's in there, I've got the sat nav, and yeah, Duncan's arm just looks like a bit like a broken chicken wing, which was quite amusing for me. I don't think he found it quite so funny. He was like, does my arm really look like that? I was like, no, I just can't draw, sorry. But yeah, this is a really fun sketch. I really like it, and I did a few pops of orangey red with an Inktense pencil that I had with me. By the way, guys, if you want to see what I took with me in terms of tools and supplies, which I'm not going to go through in this video, but I do have another video before we went on the trip, and I walked through what supplies I was taking with me. So this was the second time I did some sketching in the car, and yeah, I was really happy with these. I really got a lot out of using my water brush. I haven't used one for so long, and now it's like my new favourite thing again, you know, so just the water brush where you can put the water in the handle. And I just use this one. I don't even use the other one I've got, which is a finer one. Literally just use this one. I think it's the biggest size that I got in the pack of 2 or 3 years and years ago when I first started urban sketching, and I saw everyone using these, and then I just couldn't get on with them. But now I'm back into them. So yeah, just some pencil lines and applying some watercolour with the brush, really. And then I think in this one I've got some more pen lines, and I did that with an Inktense pencil there, because they can go over watercolour quite nicely sometimes. They're not opaque, but they're quite strong, so they do work well. So yeah, I was really happy with these, and it kind of almost looks like a bit like a comic or something, you know, just doing these boxes, very shaky boxes, because obviously drawing them whilst driving. And then yeah, I saw this bird at the hotel in Uppington, which was our next stop, but he didn't stay still, so I just got a really nice photograph and did that. And then this was the first sighting of a quiver tree, which I've never seen before, but I'd read about them and they just look really cool. I just think they look like alien trees. So had to get a little sketch of my first sighting. This trip really was about like just trying to do smaller, quicker sketches, you know. But then also I had some long ones as well. So this, oh my god, I'm going to show some footage right now. We were in the middle of the desert on somewhere called Hannibos Farm. It's the quiver tree forest. So hot. My paper was blinding me, and I don't know if anyone's seen my video on using toned sketchbooks, but one of my points there was it doesn't blind you out in the sun, which may sound ridiculous, but sketching in that desert, I was like, yep, this was blinding me. And also it was completely silent. I don't think I've ever heard, I don't know if that doesn't make sense, but I don't think I've ever experienced silence quite like it. And that's when I realized how bad my tinnitus is, because it was just like tearing my brain apart. My ears were ringing so badly. And it was so hot as well. I had to sit in the only shade, which was the little shade that my car was casting on the ground. So yeah, it was a very uncomfortable sketch, I must say. And then eventually, I mean, I won't go into all the stories because you can see them in the book if you want to check it out, but we got to a little tiny little town called Nouveautville, which apparently is one of the safest towns in South Africa. And it just seems like the smaller the town, the grander their Dutch Reformed churches are. They're just something quite spectacular to see in all of these small desert towns, you know. So yeah, I went with something a bit different here. I didn't use any pen lines, just drew it in pencil and then painted with watercolour, and I actually really like how that looks. So this obviously took me a lot longer. This took me like an hour and a half, something like that. Whereas then we moved back to these, which are like quickie. Well, that wasn't as quick, but this was just a quickie in Cape Columbine, outside a place called Paternoster, or right by a place called Paternoster. This one took a bit longer because I was being a bit more careful about the lighthouse. And then this one I did while sitting on a bench overlooking Paternoster. So again, this one was a bit quicker. It's a bigger sketch, but there's a lot of just paint, you know, not too many details. So this was another one from on the road. So I was in the car. Any time that Duncan was driving and I wasn't driving, I did try to see if I could do some of these panels, because after the first time of doing them, I was like, this is really cool. Yeah, so it's quite hard because you have to try and keep the scene in your head, because you kind of move past it, but you can kind of merge things together, and when you're driving down straight roads, you're kind of seeing the same sort of stuff quite a lot. So like this one, for example, I just got the shape of that mountain in quite quickly, and the road, and then sort of the rest is just like, you know, vague bushiness. So this was also, I tried to do this one quite quickly as well. This is Chapman's Peak in Cape Town. This was coming into Cape Town here. And this is Chapman's Peak, which is a fabulous pass that goes from Hout Bay round to a place called Noordhoek. I can't say things properly. Duncan always laughs at me. But yeah, it's a gorgeous view looking back onto Hout Bay. And then this... I wanted to sketch, but I was also being lazy, so I was just like lying on the bed in the Airbnb, and I was like, right, I'm going to sketch whatever I can see out of the window, which was this. There was a whole big mountain here and a big harbour here, but this was all I could see from sitting on the bed. So this one here is also of Hout Bay, so this was our view from our Airbnb apartment. There was a funny little story about that, but again, you can check it out on the book if you're interested, but I won't bore you with it here. But yeah, we had a fabulous view from our Airbnb apartment. It really was quite something. And then this was in a place called Hermanus, which we went to entirely unintentionally, because unfortunately when we were staying in Hout Bay in Cape Town, a water mains burst and then the water did not come back on. We were supposed to be staying there for 4 days. After our second day of no water, we were like, we need to leave, we just need to go somewhere else. So we were like, where should we go? And we looked at the map and we were like, let's go to Hermanus. So we ended up, this is the view from our hotel balcony, and obviously the ocean's here, and it was just one of the most gorgeous places I've ever seen in my life. To the point where me and Duncan are like, I think we'd like to move here eventually, because this is really beautiful. It's also quite famous for whale watching, so whale watching season is very busy there, I think, and yeah, that's one of the reasons a lot of people go there. And then after that, I mean, I'm sort of like, this is not a blow-by-blow account. I don't want this video to be too long. I just want to show you my sketches, really. But sometime after that, we went to Cape Algulas, which is the most southern tip of Africa. And the weather was suitably apocalyptic and gloomy and rainy and just quite awful. So I did this really quickly from the car. And you can see the rain splodges on my sketch, because I was kind of half in the car, half out of the car. And then it really started raining, so I jumped back in the car. And then this was another one just looking back at the lighthouse in Algulas as well. So those were quite quick. Those were 20-minute, half an hour, something like that. Again, water brush, bit of pen. This one I took much longer on. This is in a place called Stillman, and this boat is called the Wafra. It's actually a monument outside the search and rescue centre in Stillman, because this fishing boat went out in I think the early 2000s somewhere with 8 fishermen, and I think it was just very misty or bad weather. Something happened where they were capsized, and unfortunately 6 of the 8 fishermen died. So they, as far as I know, reclaimed the fishing boat, and it's now like a bit of a monument to a memorial, should I say, to the fishermen that lost their lives. So I spent a bit of time sketching this, and it was a really weird angle, and I was like I just wanted to try and sketch it, and I think I actually did quite a good job, and I got this rust in as well. This is one of Duncan's favourite sketches, so I did take some more time over that, maybe an hour and a half again on that one. And then this was our house in Stillby, which was crazy. It just looked like a big old mansion house, but it's not old, it's new, made to look like this, so I don't know. But yeah, these big apartments in each wing of the building, and it was just beautiful. And there was a little owl that was living inside this window box here. It was a cutie. Then eventually we made our way to a place called George, which I think I'm a bit out of sync, a bit out of order, but George is along the garden route, basically. I think I was hopping around trying to find spaces for certain sketches, because this, I wanted to do a full page. And yeah, so this is of us sitting at our cottage in George. Literally there's nothing by this wall, it's straight out onto the sea, so we're like right on the cliff. It was such an amazing little cottage, and I'm drinking one of my favourite beers, a Bone Crusher by Darling Brew, and yeah, looking out onto this ocean scene. So I was really happy with this sketch. This is from a place called Neisner. We were at a cafe called the East Head Cafe, which basically was the best breakfast I've ever had in my life. And then this was from a town called Oatshoorn, which is very famous for ostriches. Most ostriches in anywhere in the world. So there's lots of ostrich farms. More sketches from being on the road. I was really enjoying these. This is from a place called the Valley of Desolation, which as a couple of heavy metal fans, we were like, we have to go to the Valley of Desolation. That's like right up our street. So I was actually, you can't really tell from the sketch, but I'm like sitting on the edge of these hectic rocks. I'll put some footage on the screen, overlooking this kind of rock formation here. And yeah, I was really happy with how this came out. I just did the line work on location, and then I did the painting from photo reference back at the guest house. Because, you know, there's only so much, you know, obviously I'm traveling with my husband, it is our honeymoon, and like, you know, I sat and drew for like an hour, and then I feel like then it's time to actually go and explore stuff and like spend time with my husband, rather than him sort of wandering around by himself whilst I'm drawing. So you got to have that happy medium, you know. And then these are smaller sketches. So this is like Ochrabi Falls. I mean, I didn't do it justice here, but there's huge waterfalls in the Northern Cape. And then someone, the owner of the guest house we stayed at on the first night, she found out we were heading over to Ochrabis, and she was like, oh my god, you've got a 4x4, you must go across the desert and find these natural hot springs. in a place called Rimfastmark. So it was great to have the 4x4, the chimney that you see here in this picture, the stretch chimney in this picture, because we could just do so many more things than we could have done with just a normal car. So we really off-roaded through the Kalahari desert to find these hot springs. It was just brilliant. This is another sketch from Paternoster. This was like quite an iconic house on the corner just opposite our hotel, with this awesome like old fishing boat outside of it. And then a few more. I wanted a full page for this one from Hermanus, or just outside of Hermanus. It was this huge wine estate, and it was just so beautiful. So we obviously had to stop there and do some wine tasting, and they had this amazing big statue here and this mountainscape. Oh, it was just so beautiful. And this is another scene from Hermanus. You can see why we found it beautiful, these mountainscapes in the back. This was another one from Stillby. Just hopping around really. These are all ancient fish traps from many thousands of years ago. And these are actually a national monument, so they're looked after. So the tide comes in, and then when the tide goes out, some fish will get stuck in these like rock pools basically. I was really happy with this sketch. I was trying to really get some moody kind of wet skies going on. I was happy with the water in this one as well. I find my water is very hit and miss. Here I don't like what I did. Here I really like what I did. So it's all a bit hit and miss at the moment. I need to study water a bit more, I think. This was a gorgeous church in a place called Uniondale. We didn't stay in Uniondale. It was just on our way. There's a ghost story that surrounds the area where a couple were driving along, I think in the 1960s, and they had a car crash, and the female died, and apparently she is seen. There's been all sorts of tales of sightings of a female hitchhiker around the area that then gets given a lift and then just mysteriously disappears. So I don't know, I love a good ghost story, so I really wanted to draw the church there and include that story too. Graaff-Reinet is a town where apparently has the most monuments of any town in South Africa. That's like its claim to fame. It's got loads of these really beautiful old buildings. It could be an entire trip by itself just going to look at or to draw stuff in Graaff-Reinet. It's amazing. I couldn't really see this building properly and I didn't have too much time, but it had these two amazing jacaranda trees outside it. So I was like, I'll sketch the trees and then maybe just in a black pencil I can just sketch a bit of the building in between it. So I thought that was interesting. And then this was just a random house on the street, but I just loved, I don't know, I just loved it. And there was all this greenery around it. I was like, that would make a really nice little sketch. Now these are from Mosselbaai, and this is kind of the start of the garden route. So we didn't actually stop in Mosselbaai, but there was this lighthouse that we climbed up to, and I really enjoyed like not getting a picture book view of this, you know. I was like, there's barbed wire fence in front of it, and like it just doesn't look all that beautiful or anything, but you know, I just thought I wanted to go for a softer sketch as well. I've been looking a lot at the work of Tony Grogan, who is a South African illustrator, and just love some of his muted colours, and he just pencil lines and I don't know, that kind of thing. And then just at the base of the lighthouse were these cute little dussies, and they don't stay still for long, so I did take a picture of them and then thought I'd just do a pen and ink sketch. I don't do too many animal sketches, but I quite like how this guy came out. This one looks a bit like Grandpa Dassie. But yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to add in because they are such a South African thing. I'd never heard of them before. And then we went into some caves, into the Kango Caves. So it was kind of pitch black in the caves. I couldn't really see too much. So I did actually do this sketch from a photograph afterwards because Duncan was like, you have to draw the caves. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. But I think it actually came out okay. I've got my stalactites and stalagmites and whatnot and the guide and stuff. So I think it came out okay. After the Kango Caves, we went on this incredible mountain pass called the Svartberg Pass. It's quite famous, and it was just the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my life. I put some footage here to show you, but it's just not gonna quite come across quite how amazing it was. And then right at the top of it is this tiny little town called Prince Albert. There's beautiful buildings. This is the Svartberg Hotel. It's quite historic. Yeah, just a gorgeous, gorgeous little town. And then along the garden route, somewhere we went to Birds of Eden. It was a very rainy day, and yeah, but this Birds of Eden is apparently the largest free flight aviary in the entire world. So yeah, we were like, someone on Instagram was like, you must go. And we were right there, so we did. But yeah, it was raining. We weren't really undercover. We were absolutely soaking. But I really wanted to try and draw some birds, so I did all these from photographs afterwards. And I'm really happy with how these came out, actually. Yeah, so it's like a nice, fun spread of birds to have. And then this is back in Grafrenet again. So again, the Dutch Reformed Church is just absolutely magnificent. It's right at the end of the road. As you drive into town, it's just like in the center of town, like kind of some kind of crown jewel or something. It's amazing. And then it's just surrounded by all kinds of other old buildings. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful town. After Grafrenet though, we went to somewhere called Nieuw-Bethesda, which I do believe was probably one of the highlights of the trip. There were so many highlights of the trip, actually. I'm not sure I can say that specifically, but it was just incredible. It's this tiny little town. It has no actual roads. It's all just like dirt roads and stuff. This is their Dutch Reformed Church, which is even more like grand than some of the other places. And this town is tiny. And they also have a place called the Owl House, which is what it's kind of most famous for, I suppose, in terms of tourist attractions, if that's the right word. The Owl House it's somewhere where a lady, Helen Martins, used to live, and she has quite a sad story, but she, over the years, kind of created all these different statues along with some workers, and I mean, the full story is in the book. The grounds are basically covered in these sculptures all over the place, like layered with symbology. The house has got stained glass or coloured glass all through it. Unfortunately, when Helen got into her 70s, perhaps because of all the crushing of the glass and the work that they'd been doing, she started to go blind and started to get arthritis and stuff like that. And one of her biggest fears was like living in darkness, I think, you know, hence she knocked out all the walls in her house and had coloured glass, and she was really interested in the way light worked and it made her happy. So she ingested caustic soda as a method of ending things. And yeah, unfortunately, well, she got rushed to hospital and she survived for 3 days before dying. So it was a very sad story. I have not done that story justice at all. A bit more information's in the book, but, you know, if you're interested, I recommend looking up The Owl House and Helen Martins. I think she's referred to as an outsider artist, but I don't think her, from what I know, I don't think she ever intended to be viewed as an artist. But yeah, it's very interesting. And then after that, I mean, there's so much to do in this tiny little town. It was crazy, but we just drove slightly outside of town and followed some very specific instructions to try and find the Stone Folk, which is actually a bit of an installation by an artist in a field. And there's all these people made from rocks in various positions, like up in the hills. Some of them are on their heads, some of them are cut in half. So it's just in a random farmer's field in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So that was quite interesting. And then after Nieuw-Bethesda, we only had a day there. We moved on to Kimberley because then that was kind of halfway home. And Kimberley is the capital of the Northern Cape region. They have this amazing attraction called the Big Hole. And it's this is where the big diamond rush back in the late 1800s happened. One diamond was discovered, I think, and then more and more people came to the site to dig, and some of the most famous diamonds in the world were discovered right here. Obviously, over time, the diamonds dried up and industry dried up, or I think a larger company took over the mine, so the smaller independent people disappeared. But anyway, today we're left with this big hole, like as the name suggests, and it's full of water now. But coming out and seeing this in real life is just quite something. It's absolutely massive. But they've got this whole town surrounding it that they've built, like, that looks like the 1800s, and you can go and see some replica diamonds that they found here and stuff like that. It was actually really interesting. And so yeah, I think that was it from this trip. That was kind of a bit all over the place, really, because I decided to just sort of draw stuff where there were spaces, so it's a bit not quite in chronological order. But if you check out the book, you'll see it in its actual order with like some kind of proper narrative around it. I just wanted to show you guys the sketchbook, and in this one I didn't do too much, to be honest with you. I did the inside of the car with Duncan's broken chicken wing. I did a quick sketch of a something called the Truce Tree, which is sort of a historical site. And then I don't do much food sketching, but I sketched this platter, which we had in Langebaan, and dear God, I think this was like some of the best food I've ever tasted. American smokehouse, the head chef / owner, just so enthusiastic, basically could have talked to me all day about fire and smoke and cooking, and it was just absolutely incredible. But yeah, that was all I actually did in this book, so to be honest, I probably didn't need to take this one with me, but sometimes, yeah, quite often actually I take far more than I actually need or end up using. But I guess, you know, we're in a car and I wasn't having to carry these materials around or anything, so I think having a bit more than you need is probably okay. So I hope that was interesting, guys. As I've mentioned several times through this video, I do have a book, an ebook with all of these sketches in. For those of you that have my first book, I think you'll love the second one too if you love the first one. And for those of you that don't have either book, then there's a nice little special offer over on the page for the book, so do go and check that out. So I hope that was interesting, checking out those sketches, guys. If you've got any questions or want any more information, just let me know. I'm happy to chat to you. I could talk about sketching all day long, so do get in touch. And yeah, otherwise I will see you in the next video.